Hello, gentlemen.
What up? What up? Just making sure everyone gets a chance to get in before we go. Whoa. And I gotta make sure everything is streaming everywhere else.
Billy, monumental day for you. Do you want to tell the entire world of our numerous listeners the monumental steps you've taken today?
What are you talking about? The shot?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing this episode like a Fortnite challenge. I'm recording vaccine drunk, so you will see 3 individual water bottles over the course of this podcast. We'll give out a prize if you can quote the times they all come into frame.
Full Tilt Podcast, brought to you by the pharmaceutical industry.
Brought to you by Good and Gather purified drinking water.
I have a rattler because I've been studying so much for exams that I lost track of the definition between day and night.
Nice.
So even though it's 6 p.m. Central, we're still rocking a nice little morning drink in preparation for another all-nighter.
And good luck with that.
Yeah, man, that's
sleep, bro.
I'm glad my hell week is over. Hang in there, man. It's not fun.
1 week to go. 1 week till freedom.
Well, I say we tally ho.
Jacob Sanderson, Billy Milestone, and your host, Thomas Tipple. This is the Full Tilt Dynasty Podcast.
That's our first time hearing that.
I know. Hey, we hired our first employee. I'll give you one guess on who that is.
No idea.
That would be our man, Tom Lee.
Oh! I think Billy's muted.
Billy, you are muted.
It's this thing on my headphones. I keep hitting it. It's driving me nuts. I keep accidentally unmuting myself. But yeah, funny. Hell yeah, Tom Lee. Hell yeah.
Wow. The Aussie king himself.
Yeah, that's our first official employee. That's our boy. That's our man, Tom Lee.
Calvin Ridley, baby.
The Calvin Ridley stan. I reached out to Tom Lee and was like, hey, man, I got this idea. There's a couple things that I want to do moving forward. And I was going to source it out, but it'd be really nice if we could kind of keep the theme of everybody, from leagues meeting up and carrying on. And I figured why not have that be the first addition to the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast. So
we're going to have Stolp hockey merch at live meetups at this point.
Hawking shoes.
Stolp's gonna be coming in to do like a quick today's recap, like the It's Gonna Rain guy, like the weatherman from Family Guy. That's gonna be like our Stolp. He's gonna score,
and then he just throws a shoe into the audience.
Every game.
He's just eating
4
shoes.
quarters. It's 60 minutes.
17 weeks.
Games.
There's 17 games,
17
and in
games.
those 17 games, there's 60 minutes. Well, everyone that's here and going to be joining us, rewatching us, this is the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast. This is our 3rd edition of the little bit that we're doing where we're counting up, not down, through our top 20 prospects in this coming draft. I know it's more draft prospect rookie talk. Stay with us, all right? It's a little different here. We do things just a wee bit, tad bit differently. I am your host with the most time on his hands. I'm Thomas Tipple FF. That's Big Billy FF. That's Jacob Sanderson FF_RTDB. Guys, I just want to point it out right out the gate. If you haven't already, go to the FF Fit Club. Go to their Twitter page. Contact John. Get in with the movement. It's a great time. Great people. If you need help staying active and keeping yourself moving, everyone here will help you out. It's a fantastic, positive movement. Don't miss out. Go to FF Fit Club. Guys, last week was a barn burner of a show. It went really well. Today, we got one specific disagreement that we're going to get into. Finally, I know people have been wondering. We didn't just work it out off air this time and then come on air, and it was all hunky dory and whatnot. Our first player this week,
my
he's
boy,
a player that he is Mr.
He's
Number
like the
3
full tilt mascot at this point.
Yeah,
we love this guy.
Mr. Number 3 in a startup draft. The shit disturber himself.
How dare you?
you only have to fire me without pay.
You're a trash human. Remember that?
Piece of shit. Yeah. Can't say the last part anymore.
But it is our man here.
There he is.
That up. There's our man here.
There it is.
Is Elijah Moore.
No, Rondell.
Rondell Moore. There's too many Moores. But here he is.
More.
This is the Boilermaker product. Very shifty, very quick. As you can see, the ability with the ball in his hands after he does secure it. He can do some
DB, just pull that dude down.
Magical things. Guys, why do you like this player? Where do you think he would benefit the most? And where would you be targeting him in your rookie drafts based on your team needs? Give her a go, Billy. This is your man. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll start off since I was the one who started Twitter controversy over Rondell Moore. I really like Rondell. Prior to kind of my first load of rankings, he probably was going to be my wide receiver 2 behind Bateman. Which is good. I just kind of like Bateman a little bit more at this point. Rondell Moore tested to be very small, and that's kind of his one knock. I've written
tested to be or is.
I mean, at least he's not shrinking, right?
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
He has nowhere to go.
If he gets hit a couple times, he might be shrinking. But I've written this down. He looks like a future star in every metric except for his height. Like, that is the one thing going against him. And it seems like a lot of people right now are making comps that they feel forced into calling him, Steve Smith, just because he's kind of the only guy who ever did it at his height. I wrote down Santonio Holmes. I think he's another kind of shorter guy, works in that kind of shifty way. But he still looked good on special teams, which I love to see.
This is a play I like right here. This is a play I like right there in the flat. Right there
when he just feeds that corner. Nice. Love it.
But with his hands.
He's gadgety. He's shown multiple times that he's very hard to bring down. You can see that on every play. It feels like he doesn't get the ball without breaking the tackle. The only real downside against this guy is he's playing at a height where we've really only seen one guy do it. And he's shorter than the one guy who did it. So, and there's a few other questions like durability, which I've heard explained to me a couple times for Rondell Moore. I believe this was on a Roto Underworld podcast. Shout out Jacob. But I think at this point, his biggest question is if he can do it at his size. He played at a Power 5 conference. He was able to produce like a monster. It's just if he can stay healthy. And I feel like we have that question with a few of the other guys down here. I think Rondell Moore is the best pure athlete behind maybe Jamar Chase, just in terms of his size-adjusted metrics. But Rondell Moore is a track star who can't get tackled. And I think that...
I mean, you're looking at it right there.
Right there. I think he has so much upside. I just hope he goes to a team... Like, if Rondell Moore goes to a team that is just going to use him as a regular wide receiver...
This is the play right here, right? This is the
one.
There it is, yeah.
If he goes to a team that isn't going to use him, is just going to use him as a regular wide receiver, I'll be worried. But if he goes anywhere else, he's going to be great.
He needs a Curtis Samuel situation. I mean, that's, to me, whoever drafts him is going to have to commit to using him in scripted situations. I mean, broken down plays. Unless, again, we see something that we haven't really seen before. This is a great play.
Love that.
And again, the reason I like this...
It's just natural.
So the reason I like this is for... There's a few reasons. Obviously, being left by yourself in the middle of the field is, look at it. He dusts that corner. Corner has no idea where to go. But he catches it with his hands stretched out away from his body, knowing the safety is coming for him. That is a confidence that you want your receivers to have. Here he is breaking tackles. I think Curtis Samuel is my quote unquote comp for him. I mean, the size is really hard, but if I had to pick a guy who could be used the same way, I mean, I think Moore is tougher than Samuel as a runner, like after the catch. So it'll be interesting. Jacob, what do you got with our boy Moore here?
First of all, shout out to Brad in the chat. He said that I'm going for the middle-aged dad hair.
He came for the jugular.
Absolutely. Look at this beautiful flow right here. Just embrace it. Just inject that into your hearts, into your veins. I'll start off by providing some, objectivity to this discussion on Rondale Moore, since Billy is, fully out over the skis on Rondale. I don't have him that much lower. I mean, Rondale Moore is my wide receiver 4 in this class. I think we're going to talk about the guy next, who's my wide receiver 3 in this class. I love Rondale Moore.
Oh.
If we're just talking about like my favorite player, the guy I probably want to succeed most in this draft class that I'm rooting for, it's Rondale Moore. I love watching the guy. I love everything he brings. I think he's a perfect, type of player for the modern NFL. That's all about getting folks into space, getting folks who can use space, working their offense around, getting these explosive playmakers out in space, making big plays. I think that's, everything that Rondale provides. So I think he's a great player. That being said, I don't think that size is the only concern. I think that there's a legitimate concern with regards to route tree and with regards to,
thank you, Brad,
can this guy be a complete wide receiver? And if not, then what's the ceiling? Because everybody knows, like, I'm all about ceiling in fantasy. If all you're going to be is a Curtis Samuel, who's also, my comp. I said he's a smaller but more productive Curtis Samuel.
Right.
If that's all he's going to be, which is like a high-end wide receiver 3 type of guy, then I don't want to draft this guy, right at the very beginning of round 2. I want to try and get us a guy who can be an alpha wide receiver. And you look at it analytically, Brad. If you just pull up the slash line, 36.7% dominator. That's good. It's not, ridiculously elite. But what I do is I age adjust dominator rating. So I have what's called ADOM, where I basically take the squares of the dominator rating with the 50th percentile breakout age, and that creates an age adjustment to when that dominator was done. And he grades out up above the 90th percentile in my model.
That's great.
He also has, of course, a 99th percentile breakout age, 18.2. That's about as good as you can get if you're not Brian Edwards. However,
thanks, Brad.
His yards per reception is 9.1, which is in the first percentile. So that's literally the worst you could do. You're in the first percentile. And that's the big concern to me, is how much of that is just team usage of like, okay, that's, how they wanted to get him the ball because he's so good in space. That's the way that they used him, is on these glorified running plays. And you're seeing this continuation of swing passes, and how much of it is this guy can only be used in that fashion.
Shout out.
And honestly, I'm not sure. I can't account for what I haven't seen yet in the production profile and what I haven't seen yet in college. And we have seen very little of him being used as a wide receiver that's running a full route tree. And if he's not that guy and we have to depend on swing passes, we have to depend on scheme touches, then that makes me a little bit nervous for his floor. And ultimately, it makes me more nervous for his ceiling, just in terms of what he's going to be able to provide. That being said, I think he can do that, right? I think the biggest concern of why he couldn't is the height. We've seen plenty of wide receivers come in with limited route trees.
That's this whole class, though. This whole class, you got to, like, every single time. It's like, well, I'm not sure about this. It's 90% their size, their BMI. Like, the production in this class is there. The athleticism, for the most part, let's not talk about running backs, but the athleticism for the most part is there. It's generally breaking down to, like, do you trust the size?
Yeah,
which to me breaks down to, do you trust the coaches drafting these guys to use them in a way that the fantasy community will deem correct?
And I never trust coaches.
Never.
I'll give one other comp, and it's not a comp, because I think this guy's much larger, so I thought he was a safer prospect coming out. But last year with Brandon Ayuk, one of the concerns was, have we seen this guy run a full route tree, or is he more of that gadget type player? And from what I saw on tape was, I saw all the twitch that I needed to see. I saw the ability to create separation in a hurry. I saw the ability to be physical with the ball in his hands. And so if you have that physicality, if you have that quick twitch ability, I have faith that Rondale Moore can convert that into being able to get open on a slant route. Like, I'm not that concerned about it. And in terms of the deep speed, he's probably either the second fastest wide receiver in this class, maybe the third if Jalen Waddle would grace us with a 40 time. Nah. So Right, Anthony Schwartz being clearly the fastest in this class out of Auburn. So with Rondale, at the end of the day, like his catch radius for being as short as he is, 72nd percentile. He actually has quite a solid catch radius. So if guys like a Mike Wallace, if guys like a KJ Hamler, I'm trying to think of even more productive, Santana Moss, Brandon Cooks, T.Y. Hilton, etc. If all these shorter wide receivers can succeed as deep threats in the NFL, is being 5'7" when you're already shorter than all the corners really that much of a difference? I don't think it's going to be a huge difference. I think he can succeed as a deep threat. He can succeed as an intermediate threat. I'm just less sure about it than I am with the other folks. But with his athleticism, with his explosion, I would love to get Rondale Moore on my fantasy teams, especially if he does end up getting round 2 or better draft capital.
So I think if he slips to that 3rd round, he's like, I'm out of it. If he moves past that 2nd round, I think I'm going to fade him a bit. But I mean, we'll see. The 4th round capital would be a kill for me. That would be a done deal for me. And who knows? I think it's going to take a really creative coach. And I like your spot here. This seems to be like the popular spot for all of our dream landing spots is Arizona. I think that's the Kingsbury effect. Even though I don't think he's a great coach, his offense is great for fantasy.
I don't like it, but I think his offense works well. It works well for Rondale Moore, right? It's like they call it the horizontal raid. Like if you just run these mesh concepts with Rondale, and there's the thing about Kingsbury's offense is that there's always going to be inherent spacing. Just with the way that they spread out the formations, he's going to get one-on-one opportunities, and he's going to be able to get in space.
Yep, absolutely. So that is
my boy.
That's your boy. That's number 11. Well done, gentlemen. Well done. While we move on, Jacob, where would you feel comfortable? Let's say he gets a 3rd round grade. You're sitting at the, 109, the 110 in your rookie drafts. Is that where you're looking to get him, or would you even push him down even farther with that kind of capital, hypothetically and in a vacuum?
No. So Rondale right now is my 13th overall player, with those quarterbacks, the running backs. So he'd be right at the top of the 2nd round for me. If he ends up falling to the 3rd round, then I'm certainly placing him behind Devontae Smith, who we'll talk about later today.
Yes, finally. I know you guys have been in my mentions about it.
I don't think I'd go any lower than that. So I think he would be at worst the 202, unless he falls to round 4. Once you get to day 3 draft capital, then that changes everything.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, next up, number 12 on our count up is a player that I love, that I want to see go to my home team boys. Don't think they will. I think they're going offensive line.
Especially if they move Orlando Brown.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
For Anthony Miller.
Oh, God.
No, thanks.
I will cry many tears, but it is Terrace the Man Marshall.
Dude.
Myself into it. Could be that there's purple in there. Don't really know yet. The capital, I think he's got a shot at 1st round capital. Jacob, take it away with your guy here, since you were the first one that I saw go in on him.
Yeah, I've been hyping up Terrace Marshall for a long time back. And Terrace Marshall comes where ability to work in space is so important. And it's already in a guy that has that big frame who's going to be a red zone monster. I mean, he's always scored touchdowns at a ridiculous pace in college. Then I'm a huge fan of that type of profile of player. With Marshall, the downsides that I see, the hands are inconsistent. I think he's actually has better hands in contested situations than he seemingly does with no one around him or in his vicinity. The concentration drops are definitely a thing. I don't worry about that too much. I think that's a fixable issue.
Well done, Brad.
Yes, nice one, Brad. I also think that he has that natural hands catching ability. We've seen that flash. I think it's fixable. He's a little raw. His routes aren't the sharpest coming out. That's the type of thing that I think we've seen some film guys knock him down a little bit. And I think that's the biggest reason I've seen consistently. But it's not something that worries me too much. Again, he's one of the younger wide receivers in this class. He has all the physical tools. And again, you see him after the catch. This is an athletic dude. This is the guy that has the quick twitch. If he can just work on refining his routes, which to me is a more teachable skill, and we've seen folks really elevate that skill, like an A.J. Brown, like a Cortland Sutton, like a T. Higgins, who came in with these separation concerns. I want to take a chance on that type, which is, Jamar Chase, stud, Justin Jefferson, stud.
Who doesn't? I mean, you want him to score? You want him to score from get out of here. We don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Pass.
One thing I've hammered home with a lot of other players so far as we've been doing rankings is that they're very prototypical. And I think
Yep.
Once we go down here and we're talking about Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, some of these other players who are sitting lower on the rankings, I think Terrace Marshall is the most prototypical wide receiver in this class. And in terms of prototypical, he's maybe behind Bateman and Jamar Chase. But even in that case, Andy's tough as a rock, as you can see. But his efficiency, 10 touchdowns in 7 games in 2020 with a significantly downgraded LSU offense. He has all the potential makings as an alpha at the next level. I think with his pro day, I think he's going to be a late first-round pick at this point. I think he kind of pushed Rondale Moore out of that sign, and he's going to go only behind Jamar Chase, Rashad Bateman, and Kadarius Toney. So...
No, he's going to go ahead of Bateman, I think, in the draft. I think he's going to be wide receiver.
My player comp for him is Demaryius Thomas.
I think, one.
Yeah.
Same hands.
Yeah, kind of, a little bit. He profiles kind of in that same way where he moves effortlessly during his routes. His route running is what earns him separation. He doesn't kind of have that top level explosiveness, which I think is available at some of the other points in the wide receivers in this draft, but he still has plenty of run after the catch capabilities. And drop issues, but drop issues I'm kind of moving off on.
Drops are overrated.
Exactly. At this point,
DJ Moore had 10 last year, and no one's like, "Oh, he's not going to be good moving forward." Forget it. Whatever. It's fun to poke at the Deontay Johnson truthers over drops, but realistically, they don't matter. Jacob, you had the dream lending spot as Green Bay. I love that spot. Obviously, any receiver, we all say go to Green Bay, but this is a legitimate case for a team that could really use it, especially if Adams does miss games. There's 17 games this year. Who knows who's going to play a full season? Bill, you didn't leave me any dream destinations for this week.
I'm sorry.
I'm sure Billy would be happy with him in Green Bay.
Yes, I would be happy with him in Green Bay. The thing with, you look at the Chiefs right now, and they get all their separation and open wide receivers through speed. And the thing with that is that you can draft a young alpha wide receiver who gets it through route running, and that's a lot more sticky throughout the course of his career. If he were to go to Green Bay and play for 10 years, he's going to be just about as good then as he is now. And you can see that with Devontae Adams. Granted, he had a little bit of a slow start. Efficiency. He makes a good case in Baltimore. Just that would hurt his fantasy value.
Shout out from Duckies over there.
Hey, Duckies.
Over there at the boys, my favorite spots. What's going on? Happy to see you. So that was Terrace Marshall.
We got Mia in the chat.
We got Mia. That's right. I told you guys it's going to catch on. It's catching on, baby. Let's go. It's the Mia movement. All right. So we're going to look at a player right now that's probably going to burn Twitter down with his draft spot. Speculation and ties and a not so great pro day, but he had a great year last season. He showed out, and there's a lot you can argue, even though it's hard to argue. It's our man here. It's the Mac Daddy. It's the Mac Daddy Jones, baby. Guys, the potential number 3 overall pick. Although I do think it's smoke and mirrors. This is a player that, I'll say it like this. This is a player that is either going to shoot up Superflex draft boards because of his landing spot, because even though he kind of moves like a tree, any player in San Francisco is kind of like a situation where he has to be. How does he stack up from the previous quarterback?
He's extremely safe. He does have that 1 year for a longer amount of time. But 77% completion in the SEC is nuts. He has an amazing QBR throughout his time at SEC. And this is kind of narrative driven, but he seems like a fun person in the locker room. It seems like every time I see an interview with him, with his players, it seems like.
Are you saying that people showed up to his birthday?
Yes.
That's what we need to know. If I've seen anything from draft day, it's that it's important if they show up to the birthday. So I just want to clarify.
No matter what.
I don't think Mac Jones.
That's Shanahan, baby.
Vontae Mac Jones, no matter what.
I don't think Mac Jones becomes this quarterback, which I really like seeing from him. His
There we go.
weaknesses, they're not getting up there. He has a good arm, not great, not as mobile as some of the others in this class.
I like this throw.
I
That's
don't.
a
You
throw
chuck
that
that
I
into
like.
double coverage.
Yeah, but you know what? You look at like Teddy Bridgewater, right? When
I
he's
played
trying
Madden.
to like this right here, throws like that, Bridgewater's not making, and we always get mad that they're not taking the shot downfield. If he thinks and knows that he can get that ball in there, make the throw. If Mahomes makes that same throw, everyone's oogling and ogling about it on Twitter
Oh,
for 4
don't give
hours.
me that.
Yeah,
That's
but
true.
Mahomes' throw gets there about like a second earlier.
that's the most annoying Twitter trend.
Besides, you can throw into
Ben
double coverage all you
Roethlisberger.
want against my Tennessee Volunteers. They suck. Okay, they suck. So you can throw into triple coverage. No Tennessee Volunteers ever intercepted anyone in their lives. That team exists to give me pain. It doesn't count. If you throw a touchdown against Tennessee, it doesn't
I'm
count.
just saying you want the attitude that he can get the ball in there. Okay.
All right.
Look at Tua in Miami. What is everyone saying? Just throw it. Just throw it. Pull the trigger.
Look at
Why aren't
those
you pulling
wheels.
the trigger. Okay.
Yeah.
He's not a total tree, but what I'm saying is he doesn't have that vibe to me. And to me, that's going to be important.
So
whatever context or narrative you want to put that as, that's all I'm saying.
So I know I didn't give you dream landing spots this week.
Nick.
I really hope the San Francisco 49ers taking Mac Jones is a smokescreen. I'm kind of losing faith that it is. It feels like they're just going to take him. But if that isn't the case, my dreamy landing spot for him is in Denver. I think he fits perfectly in a place where he has a lot of talent around him. They have great receiving weapons in Fant, Judy, Sutton. I mean, Melvin Gordon, kind of.
Patrick.
Kind of. Royce Freeman.
KJ Hamler.
KJ Hamler. Sorry. My player comp for him is Joe Burrow, just because I feel like a lot of the Jacob, I see that. Hang on. Not necessarily from play, but I feel like a lot of the narrative around him is the same as Joe Burrow last year. Is he came in, put up this monster season. He's a one-year wonder. He has all these amazing weapons around him, and
they have the strongest arm.
Doesn't have, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of narrative, in terms of play, I obviously don't see that. I do kind of like the Ryan comp, but I mean,
it's not necessarily a comp. I think it's what I was saying, and what I've seen is just that in that offense he could do it.
Yeah.
Like I think Matt Ryan's obviously a superior pure quarterback, but he could do it. Given that, I don't think so, but it's his best landing spot's probably San Francisco.
Yeah,
but I think Denver passes on him because he's not 6'7".
I think my biggest takeaway from Mac Jones is that I said this earlier with Trevor Lawrence, is I think Trevor Lawrence has the best possibility to put up 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns year after year. I think Mac Jones, if he's coached correctly and they let him throw the ball and kind of do what he does well, which is fitting the ball in tight spaces, I think he also has that possibility to put up a couple 4,000 yard seasons and good touchdown years.
Well, I think it's important to note that a 17-game season, if your quarterback isn't Lamar Jackson and isn't putting up 4,000 yards, you're probably getting yeeted out of the league really quick, unless your team has 3,000-yard rushers, which San Francisco might one day in a 17-game schedule. But you're right.
All of them will be undrafted and weigh 185 pounds.
Jaden Hawkins, baby.
Oh, well, I mean, undrafted for sure. Jacob, what is it with Jones to you that really stands out to you, good or bad?
Yeah, so, I mean, I have him ahead of where Billy does. I have him up at 11. Billy has him down at 14. From the sounds of it, I actually, like him less than Billy, but apparently sure thing. And that's where it comes down to, where for quarterbacks, I mean, you get quarterbacks for different reasons. You either get quarterbacks for upside or you get quarterbacks for longevity and stability. I don't see the big upside from Mac Jones. I mean, Tom Brady last year had a phenomenal season. He passed for, I think, 40 touchdowns. He passed for almost 5,000 yards. He was the QB9. Back, both of them, didn't really have any great production. In Wilson's case, he had pretty mediocre production. In Jones's case, he was sitting on the bench until sets me apart for Wilson versus Jones. It's kind of lethargic. He takes like the big flat foot step back And then he's like going to come here with their studs, and a lot of the corners he's facing are, better than you face in most conferences.
Shout out from Bryce in the chat. What's up, buddy? Good to
Bryce.
see you. Thanks for popping in.
It's just like, you look at this, right? Like, how many of these highlight balls are like underthrown by 3 yards? And then you watch it at the pro day. It's like, and so if you actually get in the NFL where corners are significantly more physical and they're larger and they have better velocity on the football that you see in a Wilson, Lance, Fields, and Lawrence doesn't exist for Mac Jones. He throws off his back foot regularly. It flutters in the air. And I just don't see a guy who's going to be able to dominate with deep passing or with his legs in the NFL. And to me, that's a concern. I also think his decision-making is questionable. At times, he can definitely put the ball into harm's way going down the field, and I think he trusts his arm a little bit more than he should. Oh. That being said, very good intermediate accuracy. When he's throwing, so in that 10 to 25 meter range, I think he's 100% a very, very strong passer. I think he would succeed in the San Francisco offense, even though I think it would be a ridiculous pick if they were to pick him there. I think he would be very good in that offense. He could operate the Shanahan system very well. He's mobile enough, and his pocket presence, I think, is his best asset. Even though he's not a fast quarterback who's going to rack up a lot of rushing yards, he is very, very good at maneuvering in the pocket. He understands how to manipulate defenders. He understands how to create, subtle space with subtle movements in the pocket, right? Just like that. He evades one defender, takes one step, delivers a strike. And really, that's what you need in that Shannon offense. You need some sort of mobility to get out, bootleg, be a somewhat of a threat to run if you have to, but then be able to throw those intermediate crossing routes off of play action, 15, 20 yards down the field, and he thrives at that. He has really good placement on those. So I think Mac Jones can be a solid starter in the NFL. I think in the wrong landing spot where he doesn't have good wide receivers who don't create separation and he has to do a lot of work by himself, I think it could go wrong. And I'm not one for this argument that just because someone has a more limited ceiling that they inherently have a better floor. I don't think that his floor is secure. He didn't do anything, and it's not his fault he didn't do anything. He's behind Tua Tagovailoa, but we don't have a strong record of production. What we do have is a record of production when he was older than everybody that he played with, and he had a very solid supporting cast. And we've seen that type of archetype flame out before. We've also seen it work before. So I think Mac Jones could work out. If it does, it's very valuable in Superflex because he'll be a solid quarterback, and that matters in Superflex. I don't see the major ceiling. I still think he's worth a late first-round pick in Superflex, assuming he goes, in the top half of the first round, which I think is pretty much a lock at this point.
So for me, the thing with just going to finish off here, the thing for me about Mac Jones is he's got the opportunity to either be fairly productive, but let's look at it this way. The rushing upside is what matters in fantasy football now. Kirk Cousins last year threw 36 touchdown passes, and he was not a top-end quarterback in fantasy unless you were in a 6-point touchdown league. And even still, if my memory serves me, he didn't even crack, I think, top 9. That's almost like never happened with 36 touchdown passes. If you're not rushing, and do I think Mac Jones is as good as Kirk Cousins? No, I don't. Cousins gets dumped on a lot because it's fun to and it's easy to, but he's a good quarterback. I think that you're right in that if he doesn't go to a spot like San Francisco, he's going to Christian Ponder himself out of the league because you really want to be honest about it. My personal comp to him is Ponder, just for how he throws the ball. And you're right, how he underthrows it from time to time, even though, it's placement, let's be real. But to me, just looking at him and watching him play, he has that chance. So I don't think there's an in-between with him. I think that either he's going to a great spot, he's going to start and he's going to play well, or he's going to, like I said, ponder his way out of the league. So that there is the Mac Daddy himself, Mr. Jones.
All right. I got to step away for a second. I do want to make some breaking news live on the air. Some live NFL news just happened. The Chicago Bears have officially signed Marquise Goodwin.
Just the voice. Hey,
my Darnell Mooney shares.
In Chicago.
Guys, buy low on Allen Robinson.
I adjusted my ranks. Just now. Okay.
All right. I'm no longer mocking Bateman to Chicago. Hang on.
Yeah. Guys, Dalton QB1 season's here.
All right. I got to step away for a second. I'll be right back.
Just remember, guys, Billy is dealing with the second shot of the COVID vaccine, so he does have to step away for a moment. Are you ready to talk about one of the most controversial players in this draft. Like, he is a fight starter all over Twitter.
He's ruining friendships. He's ruining relationships. He's ruining Twitter pages. And you can just roll the exact same tape that you were rolling.
You know what? It's pretty friggin' close here. It's the guy. It's the man himself. What is it about Smith for you that really sets the tone?
Yeah, so I'll first state I have Smith one spot higher than Billy. So I'm a noted Smith hater by some. I have a YouTube video that's encouraging people all the red flags on drafting Devontae.
It's so close.
And for a very small guy, he plays huge. I mean, he really, really does. Like, it's not a situation where you're like, okay, he's fast and he can make things happen in space and he can maybe run deep. No, like, he actually can make some serious contested catches, especially in the red zone. He's got a really great vertical, and he's got, he doesn't have elite speed, but he has certainly adequate speed. And so I definitely think you see everything you need to see with Devontae Smith's tape. In terms of route running, he is probably, in my opinion, the best route runner in this class. He's very polished. He can be able to slice up press coverage, at least at the college level. Certainly in a zone situation, he's of course. There's two big ones, and I think that often Twitter focuses on the wrong one. People always talk about productive, especially in a senior season, in college against corners who are mostly pretty bad. And if you're able to break press against those corners, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to break press against, larger corners that are also just far more capable in the NFL. And if he's going to be more like, I'm 100% sure that he would be an elite slot wide receiver in the NFL. But if he's going to be an alpha wide receiver, he needs to be able to do that against a higher degree of competition. And he gets a lot of free releases at Bama because there's threats all over the field. And a lot of time he's running routes against air. And once he has someone on their heels, you have no shot against him because he's so sound in his breaks. However, I'm not as concerned about the BMI issue. I mean, you look at that route. I mean, it's so good. Anyway, I'm not as concerned about the BMI as I am about his overall production profile. Just the fact that we haven't seen someone with his BMI doesn't mean that it can't work. It's not like we've seen a whole ton of first-round wide receivers come in with ridiculously low BMI and fail. We really haven't seen anyone that quite looks like Devontae Smith. And so to me, it's a caution flag, not as much a red flag. The concern to me is we have a lot of data on first-round wide receivers who either didn't produce until junior year or were non-early declares and he didn't produce at all in college. So we have no reason to believe that he's an actual threat. Jerry Jeudy was fine. He wasn't exceptional in the NFL. He wasn't Justin Jefferson. And Jalen Waddle also didn't produce. He has zero breakout age, and we haven't seen him play in the NFL yet. So the idea that sort of all of these questionable prospects, the only one where we've really seen any evidence that they're actually good in the NFL being Jerry Jeudy, is the reason why he couldn't produce. To me, it's a little bit tenuous. And we also haven't seen evidence that this narrative plays out. When A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf played together, they both produced. When Chase and Jefferson and Marshall played together, they all produced. When Metcalf and A.J. Brown played together, they produced. OBJ, Jarvis Landry, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, that's a legitimate concern that he didn't break out till junior year. And it's a legitimate concern that he's not an early declare because these are the profile that we see of first-round busts over and over again, from Corey Coleman to Mike Williams to, I mean, we'll see if Corey Davis is really a bust. He's kind of on the edge. But Kevin White, you see this time and again. So that's the concern with Smith. I think it's a reason why he shouldn't be, in the same conversation as a Jamar Chase. If you want to put him wide receiver 2, I won't stop you. He's in that tier to me. He's at the bottom of that tier because I prefer Marshall. I prefer Moore. I prefer Bateman. But, I mean, everything you want to see on his tape, absolutely fantastic player.
Billy, real quick.
Yeah, no, crazy final season, 1,800 yards, 23 touchdowns is absolutely nuts. Like, I don't care what offense you're in. That's a crazy line. Still produced in 2019 next to Jeudy, Ruggs, Waddle. Regardless of how good you think they may or may not be, they are still NFL talent. So I think that is something to take away. And he looked good. I mean, his route running is amazing. He's quick off the line. Like, he can play against some of the better corners in college football in the SEC, regardless of that not being the best class coming out. But he amazing route running. He has very solid hands. He's a big play threat at any time, similar to what I said about Marshall. The BMI, I've kind of come around on not being as worried about it.
Like, is he the player where you kind of can throw that out the window a little bit? Like, for the most part, people look at that and stay pretty heavy on it. But is he the guy that you're kind of like, not this time?
I think if he won the way he plays the wide receiver position, I'd be more worried if...
Look at that push off.
Yeah. If he played in a way that required that BMI. But he wins by separating and route running. And because of that, he can get hit with a lot of passes down the field. And he still has great vertical height, which I really like. Mm-hmm. Weaknesses, the frame, of course. You can see his legs on every one of these runs. I mean, look right here.
He dusts them.
Not the best height, but not the worst. I mean,
boom.
So
cut.
Good.
He's gone.
Yeah, granted, Arkansas. And the other thing is he could be a prospect of that Alabama offense. I think that's kind of the biggest knocks against him. But all in all, I mean, the way he wins as a wide receiver lends itself to being a productive NFL player. And I thought about this when we were talking about Rondale Moore. There's a lot of players in this class who are going to push analytics kind of to their brim. When we're looking at wide receivers like Rondale Moore, when we're looking at Devonta Smith, Trey Lance is another one. But, like, there's a lot of them in this class.
Easier to be like, he just blew it. But it's like, okay, well.
Yeah, well, so did Peter Warwick.
No, I understand that. But, like, it puts Tebow. It puts that staple on him. Well, he definitely. But, it's easy when someone wins the Heisman at a position that isn't quarterback, even running back, to be like, okay, he obviously deserved it, right? So he should be able to play, right? We don't know. Like, and that's going to be it with him. Jacob, you have his landing spot as Miami. I'm going to assume that has nothing to do with the Tua rhetoric. I know how much you are against that kind of thing.
It has a lot to do with Tua, but it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they played together at Alabama. I just like Tua is a guy who works best in the intermediate areas of the field, and I think that's where Devontae Smith works best. So I think it's a great skill fit. The fact they played together, that's whatever. But
I know, I just had to throw it in there. Guys, before we get to our last player, the most controversial player on our list, like we regularly do and what we feel is very important in the community, is to give a shout out to people that either don't have the eyes or just people that want to take advantage of a different way to get the name out there. And this week, last week they were a new group and new to the scene. So are these guys. They're relatively new. It's the guys in room 619.
Ooh, from the chat.
Guys in room 619 is a sports gambling, fantasy, and whatever the heck else they want show that streams at the guys in 619 on Twitter. Dennis and Zach are two childhood friends and college roommates in room 619. They are also sports junkies shooting the breeze about different topics each Thursday night at 8 Eastern. They try to take what they see, read, and hear about in sports talk and just talk about it in a way that two friends would. Find that place between detailed expert opinions and average takes for average Joes. The goal is to talk sports from a unique and underappreciated voice within the community. The average guys who love sports as much as the guys who do this for a living. I love the vibe. I love that it's this guy, and it's not. I went and checked it out. Philadelphia Flyers. They covered it. They talked about Edelman retiring. Like, there's a little bit of everything, and it's a little bit of everything for everyone. They're great guys. They're great to talk to. I chatted with them today. They reached out. It doesn't take much. We're here for you. We'll get you in here. And those are the guys in room 619. Little Rey Mysterio. Sorry.
That was definitely what I thought it was.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I'm like, oh, wrestling fans. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I know nothing about wrestling. I don't understand what's going on here.
We're going to coach you up. Guys, I want to get to number 15, the last spot, so we can keep this on time.
Single-handedly 15 based on Billy.
The most controversial player so far on our list in terms of where we have them. It's Antonio Gibson 2.0.
Hell yeah,
really.
baby.
It's Kenneth Gainwell. Jacob, take it away.
All right.
Yeah, I'll go first because it's like when you go to see a concert and it's like, and in our opening act, we have, this random folk band from Kansas. And everyone's like, oh, okay, whatever. But you can't use any of the lights and you don't get, to actually play any good songs and nobody cares. They all throw tomatoes at you and you just like walk away feeling bad about yourself and you just want to like mix a drink full of gin and antidepressants. That's me right now. So I'm just going to get out of the way and then I'll leave it to Beaver over there to talk about his dude. So Kenny Gainwell, hashtag good at football. I want to make it very clear that he got to 15 based on one man. That man is named William. I have him at 21, which is a reasonable ranking. Billy has him at 12 because I don't know.
The boys from the guys in 619 here, this is the spot I have for him right here.
What's this? To the Jags?
Yep.
I mean, I would really enjoy that because I've been preaching selling James Robinson for a long time, and I enjoy being right. So I would much rather Gainwell become like an RB1 in Jacksonville than bow down to the James Robinson truther squad. So I'm A-okay with him going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. My view on Kenny Gainwell is this. I think he's a really fun player. He's super productive. Love that. He was productive at a fairly young age, so also really enjoy that. He had 2,069 nice total yards back in his 2019 season before opting out in 2020. So big fan of that. Here's my issue with Gainwell, really. He's 201 pounds, and that's 201 like juiced up. He didn't even play at all in 2020. So basically, all he needed to do in this entire 2020 year was figure out how fast a 40 time he could run, and then eat as much protein as possible to pack onto his 5'8" frame so that he could come in at 201 pounds. So that is the best we're going to get out of Kenny Gainwell. He played at, I believe, 190 pounds in college. 201, probably not even going to be his playing weight. If it is, that still does not put him in very good company in terms of RB1s. The only guys that we've seen as RB1s at that type of stature, Jamal Charles, Austin Eckler, and I'm talking sustained. I don't mean like, once in a blue moon type of situations.
Right.
So my concern is usually those guys are elite athletes. And Gainwell is a very good athlete. He's not an elite athlete. He came in with an official 40-yard dash of 4.47. If you adjust, that's a 4.52. And at 201, that's a pretty mediocre speed score. Only 57th percentile as well in terms of burst. So he's a fine athlete, but certainly not a plus athlete for his size. What he has going for him is pass catching ability. My caveat on basically any running back who doesn't fit my size adjusted athleticism thresholds is if they're a pass catcher, sometimes it doesn't matter. And that's what he has going for him. He's a really, really great pass catcher, especially when you consider that he shared a backfield at Memphis with a number of other fantastic pass catching running backs. That's going to be his strength. My concern is he someone that can go beyond that? Because I haven't comped to Shane Vereen, who profiles similar athletically, was also super, super productive in college, and then went on to have a very nice NFL career. I think that's sort of a very realistic floor for Gainwell.
Right.
And that's something that has some value, but that's something that you're trading a late second for, right? Like Nyheim Hines, really good player, hashtag good at football. Super happy that he's a Colt. I hope he's a Colt for life. I want him on my fantasy team, but I want him on my fantasy team as like an RB4 or an RB3, where he's a guy that you can fit into your flex as needed, not a guy I'm relying on every week as a cornerstone. So to me, taking Kenny Gainwell over guys that we'll talk about next week, all these wide receivers, like anyone named Brown, basically, anyone named Moore, Jalen Waddle, Seth Williams, even. To me, that's a little bit irresponsible because I just don't see it as likely to have that type of ceiling that's sustained. I think that right now, what's the best case scenario? Best case scenario is he gets the role that Twitter wishes Duke Johnson would have. I think the more likely scenario is he gets the role that Duke Johnson has actually always had. So That's my vibe on Gainwell. Super agile, great in the open field, great playmaker, great player. Just question the ceiling and the rank. But Billy, justify why he's worth a first-round pick
Give
in
us
Superflex League.
Give us a good 5 minutes. Convince me.
All right, so I'm going to start off by kind of going over what he succeeds at. He has masterful footwork. You can see it on just about any one of his runs. He's very able to see gaps in the offensive line and run through them. He's willing to run behind his pads if he needs to. He doesn't get caught up watching behind the offensive line. He doesn't sit there and wait for a route to develop. One opens and he's already inside it. And finally, he has a great velocity differential, which I really like. His difference from sitting behind the line to his peak speed doesn't take long for him to reach. And the difference in between those is very friendly for someone of his size to be able to look at how the play is developing and immediately hit a hole and go for, say, 20 yards or something on a rather small play. I think his ability, the fact that he outproduced Antonio Gibson in 2019 is fun to bring up, but I really don't think it matters since Antonio Gibson was basically a wide receiver at Memphis. But 2,000 yards in 2019 is amazing. Then he opted out of 2020 due to COVID. I think he actually lost some family members due to it, which is horrible. His only real weaknesses that I kind of move away from him on is he won't shine as a goal line back. He will be able to work as kind of a scat back along inside the red zone. That's kind of why I like Jacob's Naeem Hines reference. I think he can catch a screen and close that entire red zone in a second. The smaller frame is scary, but we've seen
terrifying.
We've seen running backs of his size be able to semi-produce in the NFL, which I like. And we've seen those running backs get 2 or 3 good fantasy football seasons. And the only other thing is a lot of the way that he wins is via yak, and that isn't really something that comes at a premium in the NFL. There's a lot more cases where he's going to get hit by a first defender and just put him in the ground, which all in all, I know I've said more about him, but
Thanks, Brad.
I know I've said more negative about him than Mac Jones, but I think what's important when talking about Kenny Gainwell, and this is also what I brought up earlier with I didn't want to move my players until after the draft, is I think Kenny Gainwell is in a position to be a running back where a team will go out and get their guy. I think if we're seeing Najee Harris, which is rumored to go in the back of the first at this point, along with Travis Etienne, if we see them move out, I think Gainwell could legitimately be pushing as like a mid to late second, early third pick, just because teams really want to go get their guy. And Gainwell profiles as a player who is going to succeed at the next level. And if he has trouble due to that frame, I think he has the speed and the quick twitch to get around it. And because of that, my comp is Devonta Freeman. He's smaller. He's a little bit more built, a little bit more dense. But I think he has the ability to win in a lot of different facets of the game. And that's also why my dream landing spot for him is probably the Atlanta Falcons.
Nice.
And with that, I've made my case.
A good case.
Another landing spot here. Very, very running back friendly landing spot, Miami Dolphins. Guys, that's going to be our picks 11 through 15. Want to thank everyone for tuning in and leaving their comments. I want to thank the guys from in room 619. You guys are great. I'll be checking out your content more and more. You all should do the same. Do not forget to head over to YouTube where you can go to the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, subscribe, comment, like, all that fun stuff. You can catch us over on Twitch right now. That is at Thomas Tipple FF. Like I said before, you can catch all of us at our Twitter accounts and find all of our content there. But I just wanted to mention one thing before we sign off here is a statement on behalf of the Miami Dolphins and their players. Our team came together to discuss the current situation regarding COVID-19 and the lack of clear and timely protocols put into place by the NFL. The most significant fact from that discussion was the health and safety benefits of a fully virtual offseason. Last year, league-wide injury data showed players experienced a 23% reduction in missed time. For these reasons, the Miami Dolphins stand in solidarity with players across the league who are making informed decisions to exercise their right not attend voluntary in-person workouts this offseason. We will hold each other accountable in making sure every player is getting their work in fins up. This is something that's going to pop up more and more. It's going to change how we look at the offseason, look at preseason, if we even have one, et cetera, et cetera. Just wanted to get that little bit in there as that was posted from the NFLPA and their Twitter account while we were live. Guys, did you like the show? Did you not like it? The things you agreed with, things you didn't agree with, you let us know. We'll address it. Coming up, we're going to be doing I wanted to announce that we have a huge show for night one of the draft.
Hell
on
yeah.
the 29th.
Woo!
We are
I'll be
putting
back to full
together
strength.
we are putting together an absolute murderer's row of guests that we are very excited to have. Jeff Bell, Nate, who you saw in the chat, he'll be joining us. We got the fantasy football chef, Anthony from Dynasty Drive. John Helmkamp is going to help us open the show. That's Mr. FF Fit Club himself. We have a lot of guests. We have a big show. And then on next week's show, we got not an even bigger announcement, but we have another big announcement involving our first individual guest going to be on the show. You know him well, so tune in next week for that. And I just got to tell you, from myself, from Big Billy FF, Jacob Sanderson, FF_RTDB, thanks for tuning in, and you should always remember this one most important thing.
Clear eyes, full hearts. Can't lose.